Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your habits, your network, and more. Today, Peter and I are talking about a variety of topics, including AI, how it might affect your future as a software developer, building systems, how right now Peter and I have both in our lives at some point used our software engineering skills and thinking to automate other parts of our businesses or our friends' businesses or our workflows. And we talk a little bit about lifestyle design and seasons of work where, hopefully where we're getting at with this whole podcast and your career as a software engineer is you build yourself leverage so that you can have seasons where you work hard and then seasons of extended rest where you get to design the way your life looks. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this brief conversation between Peter and I. Welcome back, everybody, to Peter and I's regular powwow, where we just connect and talk about all kinds of random things. But I think, man, I do love, you just gave me a list of topics. I do feel like you are one of those people I think about when I think about people who are interesting, like who do things differently, right? Even it was funny, my wife and I were recently talking, and God, this is going to come across wrong if I don't say this the right way, but there were a few different guys that we recently met at my church, and she pointed out some of them as like, oh, those guys could be great guys, but like probably not your close friends. But I can tell that these people are going to be friends like that you really like, the kind that are interesting. Like they just don't think about the norms of life. Like they feel like they can do different things, like work differently, spend their money differently, question the norms. For one, feel like that was a compliment to me. I was like, oh, thanks that you think of me like that. But then two, I was like, oh, that's so true. I identify different people who I'm like, oh, they do things differently. And you're definitely one of those guys in my life who I'm like, Peter does things differently,
I appreciate that. That's funny you mentioned, because I think when I describe you, more often than not, I say, well, he's just a really interesting guy. And then I usually get into all the Israel stuff, the boot camp stuff, and all the other stuff. But yeah, encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you quit your job and do all these weird things too. So this is perfect.
Yep.
All right. I'm just starting with your list here. I wrote it down. So
great.
The first thing you said you want to talk about is how to build systems. And I'm curious what made you think of that.
I think I've just been thinking about it a lot lately because of some stuff we'll get into maybe later. But by nature, I'm a little bit more like structured thinking. I like checklists. I like being able to step something out and plan. Like that's kind of how I do my planning. But I was really thinking about it more in regard to just knowing I would be talking to you because you have built a ton of systems in general. You built a ton for Parsity, and you've given talks on that. And now I'm starting to move a little bit more in that direction where I'm like using Zapier more. I'm automating things with Puppeteer and, JavaScript libraries that help you do that kind of thing, and encountering a lot in my day-to-day right now where I'm just like on high alert for what's a boring, repetitive thing that I can eliminate with code or some kind of technology. So that was kind of why I was thinking about it.
No, I love it. What's your day-to-day right now? Like what are you doing and what's causing you to think about systems? Because I nerd out about this.
Yeah. So we mentioned in passing in past podcasts, but update, I guess, for anyone that's interested is I've wound down my consulting for the most part, and I'm doing some work this summer with my in-laws, and they run a summer camp, and my wife works with them, so I'm working with her. And camping as an industry is generally like, I'd say 10 to 15 years behind where you and I would be. So just a lot of stuff on paper. The stuff that's not on paper is just really boring. There's a lot of boring, repetitive computer tasks, in which, to be fair, I don't hold this against anybody, but being an engineer, whenever I see something that's repetitive, I'm like, well, we're going to eliminate that with an automation, one way or the other. And so I actually told my wife yesterday, I was like, if you're doing something repetitive, just tell me and I'll take care of it. So that's like why my day to day right now is I'm thinking more and more about these kind of things. And I've gotten to play around with a lot of libraries that I don't normally touch. Like I mentioned, Puppeteer, Cheerio, which is for web scraping, stuff like that, which is super fun.
So like, what's an example of something that like grossly like needs automated at the summer camp?
Yeah. So I've talked about this one on my YouTube channel and maybe even here before, but the example I always go to is the first thing I ever built for my wife, which was basically they get these reports from their camp management system, their CSVs usually, but their website, like their content management system is a little bit weird. Some pages take Markdown, some take HTML, some are WYSIWYG. So it kind of depends. But for this particular part, she was having to update the wait list. And she was running a report in CSV and then taking the values from each row of the CSV and plugging them into a chunk of HTML that was just repeating for every person. And it would take her like 2 hours. And she'd have to do it like every other week. And I was like, that's insane. And so I, broke out Node, wrote a script that crunched the CSVs, returned 8 chunks of HTML with a template string and appended them to files. And then I would just send her the files and be like, just copy and paste that. Then I took it a step further and started working with this thing called Retool. Well, actually, there was an intermediate step. I built a web app and deployed it on Heroku, but because of Heroku stuff, like it broke after a while, and I just didn't have the time to fix it. Then I found this thing called Retool, which is basically for building internal tools, and it's basically a front end on top of whatever you need. So they have these reusable components that you just drag into a page, like a select, an input, a button. It can make API calls. You can write JavaScript in it. And so I just moved it to there. And so now she has this page on Retool where she can just go to do this. So that was a long explanation, but that's classic example of just things that if you're not an engineer, you're like, well, I guess this is just what I do in my job. But really are painful for me to think about people doing.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many opportunities for... actually, even at one point I thought about, because I'm just always discontent or something. I don't know, but I'm always thinking about, I have like a list of like ideas, like business ideas.
Right. And
I have a friend he does like fitness consulting. So he's like a fitness coach. He has like an Instagram page and people will pay him, like $400 a month or whatever to like get coached by him virtually. And he's been growing this thing and it's like getting pretty big. It's crazy. And so one thing I thought about was like, hey man, can I just like buy you lunch and can I like take some time and just automate parts of your business? Like the thing, because literally the thing that's keeping him from scaling is like he's doing all of the manual stuff. Right. But I think that, all that kind of stuff is it's interesting because you really can change your life if you can save 2 hours a week on something.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I love these. Maybe you shouldn't love them, but I personally get a huge kick out of, people that where the majority of their job is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, just boring, tedious tasks, and end up learning a little bit of Python or JavaScript and end up automating their whole job. Now, some people like tell their employer about that. Some people are like, well, I'm just going to kick back now. But I love stuff like that. I'm not really sure why. I think I just love efficiency in general, and it ends up having such an outsized impact for how much effort you put in. Like I'll write a script once and you can use it forever. That's the beautiful thing about software. And so the gains are incredible. It really fires me up.
Well, I think that plays into, and not to like change topics, but I think it's this idea that there are certain things that you do that you enjoy. And if you could, within work, and if you could only do those things, like how amazing would your life be? I think I've talked about this before. Michael Hyatt, he writes all these productivity business kind of books, and he has this visual called the Freedom Compass.
Yeah,
maybe I've even
we talked about it last time. I think, yeah.
Okay. But it talks about this. If you could be in your desire zone is where like you're good at something, you're competent in it, and if you think about how much time you spend in that zone every week, it's probably not very much for most people, right? And probably like the trajectory of your life should be that as you go on and as you become more successful and more specialized, like you get to spend more time doing those things and less time doing the other things. But also what's keeping you from doing that is like some of these repetitive things that either can be delegated or automated. I think that's why I get so stoked about talking about systems, or even like the things I work on, are because like the ideal life that you have is, hey, look, if you could show up to work and put in 4 hours of like high impact work and go home. Cause like, honestly, like, do people really like produce that much in a given day? I don't think so. And I also don't think like that your production's consistent from week to week, month to month, day to day.
Yeah. Hour to hour.
Yeah, hour to hour. Yeah, definitely not. People are not working 40-hour. If you actually, I'm getting off topic here, but if either of us were to sit down and actually work a full focus 40-hour week, like it would kill you.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Like no one does that.
Right.
So yeah, you've got to be able, so like if someone is able to automate tasks or delegate them or become more efficient at them, like, yeah, you really can like be 2x more productive, because not that you need to do more, but you get to spend more time doing the things that like only you can do and that you're effective in. You know, that's like, by the way, our whole pitch for Freed Up is like, seamless segue. You literally can work less but get more done. Like,
right.
Because of, if you just change what you're working on, like it's really is different.
Yeah. A way I think about it is, in addition to that, is like, let's work smarter, not just harder. Because I feel like in places that don't have the mentality that we're talking about, it's like, well, if there's more to do, then I just need to bear down and get more done. Whereas I see a bunch of stuff and I'm like, I want to do more with less. That fires me up. Doing more with more is not exciting to me at all.
No, not at all. No, I'm with you on that. Sweet. Well, anything else about systems?
Nope. We kind of went into internal tools a little bit, but that's all I had on the systems front. Sweet.
Well, I could segue to Freed Up.
Yeah.
Hey. For all of you people looking for assistance out there.
What's the update? How's that going so far?
It's going really well. It's funny. Whenever you said, I think I made a connection that I hadn't made yet just now with myself, which was, well, one, I think it's awesome that you're doing like this family camp stuff, right? Like for the summer, and not being a software engineer. Because I think like there's such a gravitation I have towards like non-tech related stuff. Like it just feels refreshing whenever you're able to step out of that.
Yeah.
And I have a friend actually who's in North Carolina, and he's been, he's a software engineer forever, and he just quit his job to like be a carpenter.
Huh.
And it's like, there's something that I admire about that so much, of just being able to like work with your hands and do something that's non-tech related. But I think what I connected to just now was the reason why I love Freed Up, this idea that people can hire assistants and delegate some of their work, really is the same vein, which is like why I want to build good systems for Parsity or anything else. And it's just this idea of like helping people focus more on the things that only they can do, like the real passions and desires in their life. So yeah, we kicked off our first few clients in the last couple of weeks, and it's amazing. Like they love it. It's a good experience. We haven't done any marketing. Like our website's pretty crappy. We haven't put it on LinkedIn. Obviously, like this podcast is not the audience for this.
Right.
But I'm realizing that there's so much of what I'm taking from Parsity and bringing it to Freed Up is going to, I think, make for a really amazing, really big business. Because to be honest with you, there's nothing harder than running a coding bootcamp. Like there's just no harder business. And I think like for as much as we've been able to like automate parts of Parsity and like now applying that to like Freed Up, which is like basically a staffing company, I'm like, holy crap, this business is way easier to run than Parsity. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because we onboard, and I compare it so much to a boot camp. It's like you onboard a bunch of students, which is great. And then it's like, all right, now we got to be there every step of the way for the next, well, however long it takes you to complete this thing, right? Like you're always going to be needing help. And obviously there's like beautiful pieces of that, I don't think we'd be doing what we've been doing the last few years on different projects unless we loved and enjoyed that. But there's also something sweet about like onboarding a client and their assistant and being like, oh, if they can ask us questions. If they need help, we can help them. But by and large, like that's the job of the assistant. Like that's literally their job. Like they're going to help them.
Right.
So it's really cool. I think our plan is, and this is all an experiment, right? Because this is totally a side gig. But our plan is like we want to get, we're not really like, we'll do single digit like sales, like maybe 2 or 3 more clients in the next quarter, where we'll have like 5 to 10 clients, and we're not spending any of the money, right? Because we're getting revenue. Obviously, we're profitable, which is cool.
Right.
But instead, like I've actually spent it I hired my assistant for a separate gig, and now she's like helping me with Freed Up. And so I'm like super early on spending all of our money on like basically building systems, exactly what you talked about, like making every step of the process. Like, so for example, Scott, who's the other guy in the business, we had to find our first assistants. And so he's like a sales guy, like super charismatic communicator, relationship, loves to talk to people, like opposite of me. I'm like, I just don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, which is like hard when you run a business to like not talk to people. That's what we were supposed to do. So it's been great having him. But his strategy for finding our first assistants was like basically post on Facebook and like email his friends. And job description, no, he just kind of made it up on the spot. Like interview process, not really. He just kind of asked good questions, and he found the most amazing people. But like that's not scalable or repeatable. Like no one else could do like what he just did for our first few assistants. So it's like, okay, now I'm going to have Jamie, who's my assistant, like she's going to be building out, like, how do we actually have a system where we can interview and hire like the best assistants? And she's going to build that. So we're trying to get to a point where like basically we have the world's best, smallest virtual assistant business, where it's like, we have the most incredible onboarding course. We have the best customer service. We find the best assistants, but like we're going to be making like 5 or 10 people really, really happy. Like,
yeah,
and spending like no effort on growth. Then once we get like the machine is good, where it's like, all right, all I need to do is like insert a paying client, and I know that it's going to be like the best experience you could possibly have. Then it's like, we're going to transition all of our focus, meaning as in Scott and I, to like marketing and sales.
Got it.
So like, we just haven't thought anything about that at all. Like no strategy around marketing and sales. Scott's just like calling his buddies being like, hey, you are wasting your time. You need an assistant. And either they're like, nah, or like, yeah, maybe so. So I'm excited about it because it's like just such a different way to build a business. And it's like, especially since we don't need the money, you know, like it's not our like day job, and nor does it need to be. Like if we had like a ton of clients, we would need to be there. But it's like we have a Slack group for all of our assistants. We have a Slack group for all of our clients. And it's like literally, if they were to message me right now and say they need something, like I can help out. In fact, like the first person we onboarded, we had the course on Notion. And our first client, he was very like non-tech. And he lives in Austin, and he was having this such a hard time like getting like through the onboarding course and figuring it all out. And mostly it's because he was confused by Notion. And so I was like, all right, what are you doing right now? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, all right, I'm coming to what's your address? And I just like got in the car right then, like drove to his office. And I was like, I don't care how much money we don't make. Like these first few clients are about like just making this like the best thing ever. And then once we know that we're at like, this is the best thing ever, like then we'll like try and grow the heck out of it. But anyway,
very cool.
Kind of blabbing, but just such a different way to build.
Yeah, I like the idea of making the product really good first. I feel like if it is as good as y'all are shooting for, then in a way the marketing will kind of take care of itself because it'll go by word of mouth as well.
Yeah, and like we're just okay riding the like wave of word of mouth, hopefully.
Right.
Because, yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, and this can maybe sound bad being on the podcast that I'm on, but I'm like, it's such an easier business than a boot camp that it's like, if I were to put that same amount of effort that I've put into starting boot camps into, which I'm not, to be honest with you, like, this is not a full-time thing, right? But if I were to, at some point, like, this would be able to grow much bigger. And I've talked about this before, like, I'm hesitant to grow Parsity because the bigger it gets, like, in some ways, like, the less valuable it becomes,
right,
for the students. But I think one of the ideas we've had with Freed Up is, like, every time that we have a client working with an assistant together, like, they're solving problems. Like, that's the nature of, like, the work they do together. The problems they're solving are, how can we be more efficient in this person's execution, right? Like, how can they more efficiently build, work, grow their business, manage their life, etc. And by and large, they're all going to be doing the same kinds of things. Right. They're just going to be dependent on their industry. Like, they're all managing email and calendars and calling vendors and scheduling and booking transportation and, like, all that kind of stuff, right? Can we then, like, figure out from them, like, what are best practices? And then, so I think in this case, it's like, this is a business where, like, the more people you have, like, the better shared knowledge you have of, like, delegation and efficient execution. So, anyway, right. I'm blabbing now, but I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah.
About our teeny little business.
It's exciting. Yeah, it's cool. Like, what you mentioned, like, hopefully you guys will kind of develop your own best practices, and then everyone can kind of learn from what everyone else is doing and kind of have a synergistic effect.
Yeah, for sure. And like, a couple of quick notes that I, like, have made about, I mean, this isn't a business podcast, but I think one thing I realized is, like, focus is important, right? Like, I had this grand vision of, like, starting all these different businesses and running them all at the same time. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, at some point, maybe I'm just going to let Freed Up to kind of be organic. Mm-hmm. But at some point, like, if I really want to grow it, I'm going to have to go all in on Freed Up, right? And that's, like, not for a number of years, I don't think, kind of thing. That's not, like, what I'm interested in doing. But I'm convinced that, like, trying to do everything at once is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something else I was going to say, but no, completely lost it.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, there we go.
No
Didn't
worries.
write it down. Don't know.
Well, glad it's going well so far.
I thought by the end of the O, like, it would come.
That's funny. Optimistic O.
Yeah, that's optimistic O. But that's all I got.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, yeah, glad it's going well so far.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been, like, an experiment for sure to, like, start something else. And by the way, my wife has been, like, not super happy with me because there's been a few things I've started and tried that, like, I did not explicitly talk with her about first. Like, when we started DevMint, she was like, since when were we going to talk about you starting DevMint? I was like, I don't know. Sorry.
She saw it on your LinkedIn or something?
Yeah. And then we're, like, going over our finances or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I invested $3,000 into, like, this thing. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, Freed Up. She's like, oh, you did? Like, what is that? I was like, oh, it's
a business.
Other business. She's like, you're not allowed to, like, try anything else without me. And then recently she was like, hey, we should buy a Turo in North Carolina, like, and start a Turo business. And I was like, cool, but that's your business. Like, you told me I can't start anymore. So if you want to, like, buy a Turo car and, like, try and figure out how to, like, use TaskRabbit to rent it out, like, go for it. But
funny. That's good.
All right. Your turn. Playing with AI. You've been playing a lot of AI?
Yeah, a bit. So I'm getting more and more into it. Obviously, it's, kind of all the rage. I think one thing I've been thinking about, I was talking to someone about this, but basically when crypto was hot, I was like, everyone was like, this is the next internet. And,
yeah.
And, like, you had really smart people, good investors kind of getting in on it. And I was like, well, I think in my heart of hearts, I was kind of like, I don't really see how, like, what the application is of it, but I guess I believe in that because all these smart people are doing it and they might know something I don't.
Yeah.
I realized that when ChatGPT came out because the application is so obvious of what it can do. I was like, oh, this is actually the next internet. And I was not thinking critically enough before, but this is really obvious in my opinion. All that to say, it's getting a lot of hype right now, but I think for good reason. And I'm on the bandwagon. I use it daily now. Like I'm kind of starting to use it as like a second Google. If I'm not getting the Google results that I want. And I ask it like how to write things in code if I'm like feeling lazy and don't want to look up a bunch of Stack Overflows. That's been really helpful. I subscribe to this newsletter called Prompt Engineering Daily. And prompt engineering is like writing the correct query basically in ChatGPT to get what you want. So they have all these, it's like an example a day of like, this is what you can do. So it's crazy stuff too. Like I took a blog post and wanted it to write a new blog post in the author's voice, and it can do it. Just stuff like that, which I wouldn't have thought about without this newsletter. And then as it pertains to like coding, we had a mentor from Parsity give a tech talk. We do tech talks every month. This person spoke last month and talked about all these different AI tools that you could use in general and as a developer. I'd heard about GitHub Copilot for a while and hadn't really looked into it. For those that aren't familiar, this is basically an AI offering inside of GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft. GitHub is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft is a major investor in OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. So basically there's ChatGPT technology.
They're all friends.
Yeah, they're all swimming in the same soup. But my understanding is that some of the same technology that powers ChatGPT also powers GitHub Copilot. So after Ben gave his talk, I was like, well, might as well give it a shot because I'm playing with all these things anyway. And it's been great. Like it hasn't been, I wouldn't say game changing, but it's been helpful because it basically lessens the friction between your brain and getting it on the computer screen. So for example, it can guess what a function needs to do based on what you name the function.
That's awesome.
It can guess what the next line of code needs to do based on a comment that you write. And it's surprisingly good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And so I was like showing my wife like, oh, look, it guessed this based on this. And she was like, I don't really know what I'm looking at. I was like, never mind. But for me, it's just made it a lot more enjoyable, the code, because I don't have to just do all the tedious like typing basically. And it can also kind of like guess certain things that you haven't, like it can kind of contextualize based on where you are in the file and give you a suggestion for what needs to happen next. And so for me, it's like, this is just making the whole process a lot better.
Man, I haven't used Copilot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm super excited to give it a shot. To be honest, I haven't like actually built much of anything substantial lately. I'm like, I don't know what I would use Copilot for, but I've definitely used, it's funny. I use it in Notion.
Yeah.
They integrated a little AI widget, and it's been like, even for small stuff, like the other day I was trying to make like, I think I had a goal planning note, and in it, I wanted like to see like what age all of my kids would be for every year for the next like 10 years. You know, so my kids are now 4, 6, and 8. Like next year they'll be 5, 7, 9. I didn't want to write over and over again, like change the numbers. So I just like wrote a prompt as like, take this line and do the same thing, but for the next 10 years. And it did it. It's like, like that just made I don't want to write this thing. I've been using it all the time for like communication. Like if I need to write something, and then, I won't have it, like I won't use it word for word, but I will definitely have it, give me suggestions on things. Or even like I've had like conversations with it.
Yeah.
Like the other day I was like thinking about freed up marketing, and I was like, all right, what should our next step be? And I keep on like, the more questions and more context you add to it, like the better it gets.
Right.
It's been really cool. I think going back to your note about like crypto and all of that, like I actually agree. Like I'm a crypto guy. I wouldn't say I'm a crypto bro, but I'm a crypto guy. I do think there's a lot of overhype in quote Web3. I think at the root though, like there is still a next version of the internet where individuals like own their information rather than like Facebook and Google.
Yeah.
And I think blockchain hopefully will come more mainstream, but I don't think I think what people thought it was supposed to do that it doesn't do is like create new features, right? Like in fact, I heard someone recently, I was at this event that Google put on. They have like a whole Web3 organization and they put it on here in downtown Austin. I went to it and the guy who was like head of like Web3 at Google was like, look, we shouldn't have these terms Web 2 and Web 3. Like it's not an us versus them. Like a good Web 3 experience is someone like not really even knowing that it's a quote Web 3 app, right? Like we should be building like extremely user-friendly, feature-rich applications regardless of like where the data is stored, right? Like that's sort of what it is. It's data storage solutions. And maybe there are some like features that are enabled by like this peer-to-peer model that's not available for like Web 2. But I think that's why AI is so amazing, is because it's kind of the opposite. And actually, I think the two probably could play together just fine, which is AI like changes the game of features, right? Like it enables new features. And that's why like there's so much heat from crypto of like, well, like what's the use case? It's like, well, literally everything is a use case. But there are not necessarily many new use cases.
Right.
They're just different versions of the same thing. Whereas like AI is literally a whole new way to build apps. And the coolest thing I heard recently was listening to a podcast with the CTO of HubSpot. And they recently built this thing called ChatSpot. You know what I'm talking about?
I do, because of my first million. Was it Dharmesh or Brian?
Yeah, Dharmesh. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. We talked about the difference between, and this is what I thought the most compelling use of AI in software development is the change of your interface, right?
Right.
And he talked about the difference between declarative and imperative programming. Like imperative is where like you write the code, but you write it in such a way where every step, like the process by which you get there is important. Whereas declarative programming is you are describing the end state and all the in-between steps don't matter. And so he was talking about like HubSpot, for example, is some pretty complicated software. We have to build like all these automations. Like for example, we use these in Parsity, right? Where someone submits a form, they then get an email. The email then runs this. Like there's just all these different automations that happen from this trigger. And to set that up, like you have to learn HubSpot, right? You have to know not just what you want to do, but you have to know how to do it like in the software. Like which buttons do I click? How do I drag? Which words do I type? Like where do I find this feature? What features are available to me, etc. And whereas with AI, what you can do is you have a chat interface where you just declaratively describe what it is you want to do. And you do not need to know how HubSpot will do that thing. You just need the end results. You just need an automation that will send an email when a form is filled out. And I think that's freaking incredible. Like that's a brand new, like we use the mouse, we use the keyboard, we got the touch screen with the iPhone and the iPad. We have some pretty crappy voice stuff with, Siri and Alexa and all that. But like this is like next level. Like the interface has completely evolved now, I think. So I don't know. I'm interested in, I think that's the most interesting thing to me. Like from a software developer is like, hey, from now on, you may not be building these interfaces like in the same way that you used to. You'll be building like chat interfaces, which is insane.
Right. Yeah. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've seen that they introduced the concept of plugins for ChatGPT. Have you seen that?
No, tell me more. I mean, I've heard about it, but I don't.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like an app basically. So in the first batch they released, Expedia has one, Kayak has one, Instacart has one. So for example, you could say, cool. Hey, I want to fly to London. I want to go next month at the end of the month. And, I want first class, but I want it to be as cheap as possible or something like that. And in theory, like it could go through and be like, okay, here are these options. And right now it can't book for you, I don't think, but it'll take you to the website with everything filled in. But it's not hard to imagine a world in which you say, and it's also not hard to imagine a world in which you're speaking it instead of typing it, but where you're literally saying to some system, maybe OpenAI or not, like all these things, and then say, yeah, go ahead and book, and it's all done for you. So they're moving there already. So they introduced these plugins, and there's also a developer center, basically, where if you want to write your own plugin, they have documentation on how to do that. So all to say, it's all very exciting, kind of mind blowing. Just in the past like 6 months, what's happened.
Yeah, I think the hype is worthy. I think it's worthy of the hype for sure. And it's been funny. People have, to wrap all of our conversations together, have been asking me like, hey, well, we don't need assistants anymore, right? If AI works really well, for example, if one of your assistant's job is to book a flight, can you just tell AI to book you a flight? You don't need an assistant anymore. And there's actually been, I heard about this also in my first million, them talking about like that there are assistant AI apps where not only will they know how to do it, but they'll actually do the thing for you, like book the flight or whatever. And my only thought is like, this brings up the entire conversation that everyone ultimately has, which is like, all right, if this is no longer on the table anymore, right? If there's not something you need someone to do, like what is our role? And I think I've heard that conversation too, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about, all right, like eventually if AI can write software, does that mean like software engineers are no longer relevant? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so
I think that is the question, right?
It is. And actually, when we had this tech talk at Parsity, one of our students asked, like, and I can totally see the concern, right? Like, okay, if AI makes developers 4x more productive, does that mean we are going to need only a fourth of the software engineers that currently exist? And I mean, it's hard to predict the future, but I still think you need, like, this is what we tell students when they try and use ChatGPT to do curriculum. It's like, you still have to know what to ask it. And if it gives you something that's not quite right, you still have to know why it's not quite right. You need to be able to deconstruct it a little bit. So I don't think currently it's going to eliminate software engineers, but I think it will change how we write software ultimately, and I don't know exactly how. I think we will be more efficient. Now, whether or not that translates to fewer jobs, I think is really hard to predict. But it seems pretty certain that it'll have a large impact, I'd say, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think?
No, I agree. I think like it just makes everything more interesting, right? Like I don't know how it changes the landscape, right? But I know like if you're able to do, I think it just makes you able to do more interesting things.
Right.
Like as the developer, like, yeah, you're still guiding the AI, right? I don't think the AI will ever be able to build, I mean, maybe so, but not anytime soon. I'm not an expert on the kind of things that we're able to build now, but it will make us faster and more efficient. And maybe that means we need to then do more work. I don't know. That kind of sucks, but I always think that this isn't anything new, right? Like the idea that like technology speeds certain things up and makes certain things obsolete, like isn't a new concept. In the last 100 years, it's 10x what it was the previous 100 years. And I think we'll keep going at that flywheel, like we'll continue.
Right.
But like, only thing that has done is it's made everyone have more access to luxury, more time for leisure. Like that's I think sort of where we're headed, in some ways. It's like, and like things get less expensive, like overall. Like I think I heard someone say this on a podcast once. God, we listened to me a podcast, I think, where they're basically saying like, if you were to tell someone 100 years ago the way that you live right now, like you'd have to be like a billionaire to do that, right? To have someone deliver food to your house, it's like $15 for, to order like an entree from a fast food place and have it delivered to your house. Like not cheap,
right?
But it's not crazy expensive. To have a driver, Uber, to have like electricity, to have like instant entertainment where you can watch anything at any point in time. Like they'd have to like go to some place and pay a lot of money. Like it's just it's insane. I think that's what technology is going to drive. Whether that be good or bad, like it's just going to be different for everybody, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not much to add.
Dope. All right. You want to pick one more of these things?
Yeah.
To chat through.
Let's talk about seasons of work. So
I love this idea.
yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Basically, this idea, I've thought about this in the past, and I wrote a newsletter on it last year, right about this time of year, because obviously my in-laws' business is seasonal. But I was listening to yet another podcast, Nathaniel Drew's. He's a YouTuber. No Backup Plan is the podcast. And he had Johnny Harris on, who's another YouTuber. And Johnny basically has these 2 tattoos on his arms. One is a juniper, a branch of a juniper. And the other is the same exact thing, but he calls it the machine. It's the same branch, but it's like wires and chips and kind of like mechanical. And so it represents these kind of like 2 basically styles of season that he has, and also kind of like 2 different personas, where he basically got really burnt out, was kind of going at a ridiculous pace. And if you look at his YouTube videos, they're like extremely high, like they could be on HBO, high quality content, incredible editing, great storytelling, heavy research. He's got a big team. And so he burnt out. He basically had a period where he was only putting out 1 video a month, and he was essentially just recharging the rest of the time. And so that's kind of the juniper season. And he was burnt out on work. He said he was bitter, but he realized that he's kind of meant to do like exactly what he's doing. So after he was able to recharge, come back to it fresh, he was ready to just start crushing it again. So the other arm is called the machine. And when he's the machine, he's grinding, he's coming in. He described his daily routine, which was incredible, but basically like he thinks the night before about what he has to do, like whatever video that they're working on that week. And he comes in, he has a block from 9 to 1 with 0 distractions, where his only job is to focus on this one topic. And then, like you said, like you only have so much high intensity output to give in a day. So he kind of crashes after that. And just, that's when he has all his meetings and stuff. And he'll do that for however many days in a week. And that's how they have this insane output with these high quality videos. But he's not going to do that forever. It's only going to be for a season. Then he'll move back to this season where it's kind of rest, recharge, spend time with family, invest in hobbies, all that kind of stuff. So I love this concept. I love the idea of seasonal work in general. I feel like one of the worst things about the regular workforce is just that it's the same thing day in and day out, like kind of no variation to the rhythms of the day for most people. And so I just like this idea. I wanted to bring it up, but I know you're kind of, if I had to guess, I think you're kind of in a juniper-ish season right now. So I'm curious for what your thoughts on the topic are.
Like the hardcore season?
Juniper's the rest recharge. Machine is the hardcore one.
Yeah, considering I had like 3 jobs, I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe the intent at the beginning of this was a little bit more towards the former. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. What? Well, first, like when he says a season, like how long is a season?
I actually don't know. I think it's several months at least. It sounded like it was kind of kicked off due to a crisis, though. So I think the initial kind of rest period was 2 to 3 months, and then I think he said it's May now. He said since October, I think he's been back on the grind. So that's 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I freaking love this. I think I've heard Naval talk about this, that like humans weren't made to like just slowly grind away.
Right.
You know, like we were made to have like sprints and rest, like hard work and then hard rest. And I think this just aligns with so many values that I have, like, which is that like you really can't. Balance is like a myth. I heard someone say this recently. Like balance is a myth. Like there's no such thing as work-life balance. Like maybe like overall, like kind of like if you look at a stock market chart, like you back up, like, okay, there's some balance. But if you zoom in on like the data, like right now, like I'm at work, right? Like for me to like exit this conversation and, you know, text message my wife about something that my kids are doing, like it's not good. You know, I mean, obviously I can do that. I have the freedom to do that. But like for me to do well right now, I've got to be all here. Right. Same thing when I'm at home. Like if I'm at home tonight, like I got to completely eject from work. Like I cannot be halfway. Like you're just going to produce crappy results. So I don't think there's work-life balance. And I think taking on this concept of seasons, where I think even individuals, right? Like there are certain times of the day when like you're more alive, certain times of the year. I would love that. I actually wrote down recently that I created like a list, like multi-year goals, like goals that I just have that I want to review often, but I don't have like a real timeline to yet.
Yeah.
And one of them is like every year, just take 2 months off. Like just take 2 months where I like don't do anything work related at all, because I just so believe that, man, this is necessary. And life just goes so fast. And honestly, I haven't done this well. Like I look back on, there was one season that I had, probably 2022 maybe, where like Parsity had started up, it was going well, and then like I got bored because I was like, okay, I'm not going to grow Parsity, and that's when I started DevMint.
Yeah.
But like I'm not going to grow Parsity at all anymore. And my whole thing was I wanted to be more like available. Like I had like this huge season where I'm like, availability is all that matters. Like, and I hated it whenever I would talk to guys that I knew, because this is a whole other topic. Like male friendship is hard, right? Like my dad, I don't know like how many great friends he has ever had. Like, you know, if I'm honest, like there's not a lot of guys that I'm great friends with. There's like a small handful, and like we're not in the same group, you know? And part of that for me was like just availability, and like no one's available. So like I am going to be available for everything. I won't ever miss a game, lunch. Like, anyone wants to do anything at any time, like I'm there. But then I realized that no one else was available.
Right.
And then I got bored. But all to say, man, yeah, I love this. And I think, I don't know and this is why like I am still such a believer in entrepreneurship overall, is that, and I think this is the real thing that I hope technology enables, which is that everybody could create their own work. Because at the end of the day, like I think eventually, hopefully big companies will catch on to this, but very few people have like the luxury of being able to do this. And I really don't think, if you take one person who, like this guy, Johnny's a great example. If you take someone who works like a regular 9 to 5 and they get 4 weeks off a year, versus the productivity of someone who, like, let's say they take 4 months off a year, like no doubt, I bet the person, and this is not scientific at all, but no doubt the person who takes the 4 months off every year, like is more productive. Like they are so much more in line, like their mission, like what they're working on.
Right.
And
I think
engaged. And I've had seasons.
At the end of the 4 months, I don't know about you, but I love time off, but I also get restless after a little while. And so that energy has to go somewhere.
Dude, I get restless on Saturdays.
Yeah. So
my wife makes fun of me because like Saturdays I'm like walking around. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Why don't you sit down?" I'm like, I don't want to sit down. Like,
that's so funny. Yeah. So I feel like that benefits your work, because when that energy has time to build back up again, you come at it fresh and renewed. And yeah, it's better than just slowly, kind of draining away over a long period of time.
Yeah, for sure. And that I feel like is it's funny. If I were to think about one thing that I want to do in terms of like, I guess like a mission in some ways, like this isn't the center of my mission, but I think in some ways I want to myself, and then also help others figure out like, how do we get to the place where we can like own our work? And because I think that opens up these things. I think we started the podcast off by complimenting each other on how we think differently. But I think people should, like, the amount of effort it takes to, I think you would probably attest to this, go consult. Like, it's just a little bit of courage, but the effort, not that much. The amount of money the average American spends on crap is insane. Like, you don't need that much money to live. Like, you just really don't.
Right.
If you just figure out how to budget, take some courage. And I hope that's honestly where a lot of the students that we work with eventually get to. And I've seen that before from time to time, where it's like, hey, you can have more leverage by upping your skills. Like, that's step one. From there, you can use that leverage to buy more leverage. And you continue that process up to this point where it's like, yeah, you control now, like how you work, your schedule, all that. So anyway. Yep.
Very exciting stuff.
I'm not doing that necessarily myself, but I want that for myself and for other people too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a process. We'll all get there.
Process. Yeah. Cool, man. Cool topic. I think that's something fun to think about. And I think even just thinking through and identifying like what the steps are from here to there is a fun exercise to do.
Yeah, for sure. I'd encourage anyone listening to do it.
Definitely. All right. That was a random podcast. I think that's it.
Cool. See everyone in the next one.
As the My First Million guys would say, that's the pod.
There you go.
All right. Bye, y'all. All right, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. To learn more about what it looks like to become a software engineer, you can start with our online course called Dev30. It's dev30.xyz. It's a 30-day course where we're actually going to be working on your skills, your mindset, your habits, and your network while you're learning the basics of JavaScript. So if you've never coded before, this is a great place to start. If you want to take the leap to become a software engineer and you already know the basics of JavaScript, how to program, that's where our online code school comes into play. So to learn more about that, visit parsity.io. That's parsity.io. And we will talk at you next week.